So with news surfacing today that the Dolphins are looking to trade away a key player they just signed to a massive extension a year ago, it's safe to say that fans are not happy with the current state of the roster and how things are being ran. And in today's video, I'll dive more into what's going on and why it's not looking great for Miami, some confusing updates about Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, conflicting reports floating around about the legitimacy of Derek Carr's shoulder injury, and more right after. Alright, first up, this is certainly interesting, but the University of Colorado is going to be retiring both Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter's jersey numbers, so number 2 and number 12. I understand both of them had a tremendous amount of individual success there. I mean, last year Travis Hunter won the Heisman and Shedeur Sanders broke the single-season passing record among a bunch of other school records, but it seems a bit much to retire their jerseys after just 2 seasons with the team. Colorado was 4-8 in their first year there, both of their first year there in 2023, then 9-4 last year, but got dominated in their bowl game versus BYU. Gets even crazier when you realize that in the 135 years that their football program has been around, only 4 jerseys prior to this have been retired. I mean, I don't really care that their jerseys are getting retired, but it's all a bit confusing, especially considering how quickly they are deciding to do this. I mean, the retirement announcement's soon. I think it's this month. I'm not alone in these thoughts either. If you go to the official announcement from the team on their X account, the comments are littered with people wondering why they are doing this. But let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments down below. Do you think their jerseys should both be retired after just 2 seasons or nah? Sticking with Travis Hunter here for a moment, he recently said that if an NFL team told him they would only allow him to play either offense or defense, he said he would never play football again. He said he's been playing both ways his whole life and he feels like he can dominate on both sides of the field. I'm sure he was exaggerating a bit to get his point across, but either way, he said that hasn't been an issue with any of the teams he's met with so far. The Browns are favored to take him 2nd overall, and while there's been some reports out there that state they view him more as a receiver, I would assume they're willing to play him some on defense as well because both sides have already met, and Travis said himself there's been no issues from any teams. Let's be honest though, hypothetically, if a team said, hey man, we don't want you to play offense at all, but we're gonna pay you millions of dollars, are we so sure he would actually say no thank you and retire? And in some more draft news, it sounds like the Panthers could be a logical trade partner for teams looking to move up and draft a quarterback. With news of Derek Carr potentially missing all of the 2025 season with a shoulder injury, the Saints suddenly became a quarterback-desperate team, with them now being the betting favorites to draft Shedeur Sanders. They're picking at number 9, not saying they will actually draft him there, but you cannot rule out the possibility. Then the Panthers are right ahead of them at number 8. So basically, if a team picking after 9 wants to move up and take a quarterback, the Panthers would make a lot of sense there. And it sounds like GM Dan Morgan would actually welcome a trade back if the price was right, saying, quote, we'll be waiting if somebody wants to come up. So there's certainly going to be a team to keep an eye on before and on draft night. On the subject of Derek Carr, though, let's park the car here for a moment. That was a bad joke. I'm sorry. Diana Rossini had some interesting nuggets on her podcast today about him. She said that the Saints are on a mission to get a quarterback in this draft, which makes sense given the news of Carr's injury, and you basically after that have Spencer Rattler as the next man up. But that's where this all gets a little bit weird. She threw this out there saying, I wonder if there's a little bit of an excuse made with the shoulder so Derek doesn't look bad asking for a trade because of the situation. She also said that it was very hard for her to try to find anyone in football who said that Carr is definitely dealing with a serious shoulder injury. So basically, she's implying that Derek Carr might be exaggerating the severity of his injury, but I feel like Derek Carr is a pretty stand-up guy, and this seems to go against how he's basically operated throughout his entire NFL career. Another odd part about all this is we don't really know when the injury actually occurred. He did have some shoulder injuries in 2023, but all that was reported last year, injury-wise, was an oblique injury that had him miss a few weeks, and then a hand injury late in the year that did end his season early. But the timing of the injury news, literally 2 weeks before the draft, was a little strange. Mike Florio thinks that because of the timing, it seems like Carr leaked this info. Carr or his team leaked this info rather than the team. Now everybody and their mom knows that the Saints are going to be targeting a quarterback in the draft, and that will dictate how teams behind them operate if they're also looking for a quarterback. Things don't appear to be going so smoothly, to say the least, between Carr and the Saints right now, but a breakup is a little tricky. He was due a $30 million fully guaranteed injury bonus back in March, and the Saints could have chosen to cut him to avoid paying that. However, they could not have cut him if he was unable to pass a physical before that deadline, and the fact that he's considering surgery for his shoulder would indicate that he wouldn't have passed that physical. But that doesn't really line up with Diana Rossini's feel on the situation, who thinks Carr may be fabricating the injury a bit. Either way, things don't appear to be heading toward a happy ending here, and as of right now, the most likely scenario is that he'll be a post-June 1st cut next offseason, and the Saints will eat nearly $60 million in cap charges in order to make it happen. Another team that seems to be in a bit of a pickle, or rather just a straight-up mess, is going to be the Miami Dolphins. Early this morning, it was reported that Miami and superstar corner Jalen Ramsey are mutually exploring trade options, with Ian Rappaport adding that it wouldn't be a surprise if he played elsewhere in 2025. Their GM, Chris Greer, said, quote, "We decided it was probably in the best interest for all parties to move forward separately." So it sounds like Jalen Ramsey has definitely played his last snap as a Miami Dolphin. They just traded for him 2 off seasons ago and signed him to a 3-year, $72 million extension before the start of last season that at the time made him the highest paid corner in the NFL. Well, he's set to make $25.1 million fully guaranteed this upcoming season. Then he carries a $25 million, a $26 million, and a $36 million cap hit the next 3 years after that. None of those are guaranteed, so there could be a potential out after next season. And with the Dolphins currently operating with the 24th most available cap space in the league, plus multiple young players that are going to be looking for an extension soon, it makes sense as to why they'd like to offload that contract. Just don't expect to see a trade happen before the draft, though. At least that's most likely not going to happen, as the Dolphins would actually have to take on over $29 million in dead cap to trade him before June 1st. If they wait until after, they can split the dead money across the next 2 years and would actually save around $6 million in cap space by doing so. That's the most likely scenario we see play out here, according to Jason Fitzgerald from Over the Cap. Obviously, trading him comes at the price of losing a great cornerback, though. Even at the age of 30, he's still one of the top corners in the league. After missing the first 7 games of the 2023 season, recovering from a torn meniscus, he played in all 17 games last year and finished with 2 INTs, 11 passes defensed, and was the 16th highest graded corner according to PFF. The question is, who's going to trade for a soon-to-be 31-year-old cornerback that's the 3rd highest paid at his position? I mean, it's no disrespect to Jalen Ramsey. I'm sure several teams would at least be interested, or maybe pick up the phone and call, but considering the Rams only got a 3rd-round pick when they traded him 2 years ago, I have a hard time seeing him fetch anything better than a 3rd-round pick again this go-round. The age, contract, and injury history will probably scare some teams away, as we just haven't seen a lot of 31-year-old corners continue to dominate in the league. Just take a look at the top corners from last year, for example. Here's who made the All-Pro teams and their age. Pat Surtain II, PS2, 25 years old. Derek Stingley Jr., 23 years old. Trent McDuffie, 24. And Christian Gonzalez, 22. The last time Jalen Ramsey made an All-Pro team was in 2021 when he was 26 years old. Now, aside from the Jalen Ramsey situation, Miami is still in a bit of a weird spot here. You got Jalen Ramsey, Tyreek Hill, and Tua. Those are the 3 largest cap hits on the roster this year, with Tyreek and Jalen both 31. So, aging vets. And then, of course, Tua has had quite the extensive injury history himself. He missed 7 games with that concussion as well as a hip injury last year, and that played a pretty big factor in them falling short of the playoffs with an 8-9 record. And I know Dolphins fans don't want to hear this, but they're probably well aware that in 3 seasons under Mike McDaniel, Miami has a 3-13 record against teams with a winning record. That's pretty tough, even though I do like McDaniel. They need a bit of a shift in their roster. I think that's coming, but is it too little too late? Here's what happened after cutdowns last year. After the 53-man roster cutdowns, they had the oldest roster in the entire NFL. The good news is for the Dolphins, this should change this year, with 33-year-old Teron Armstead retiring, Jalen Ramsey likely being traded, many aging vets moving on in free agency, and they have 10 draft picks for this year's draft. They could even trade back from pick 13 if they really wanted and recoup more capital and load up on more second, third, and fourth round talent. They could obviously stay put at 13 and take the best player available, and you really can't rule out any particular position being selected at that pick. Tua's injury history is concerning, and there's actually an out in his contract after next season. I still think there's plenty of dead money involved, but you can get out from it after this year, and that's why you can't, I guess, completely rule out them even taking a quarterback this year. I still find that unlikely. Regardless, they need to absolutely nail some draft picks this year to infuse quality youth back into the roster. It also looks like an aging receiver on the team is not going anywhere either, regardless of any off-the-field drama. Dolphins GM Chris Greer said today that they're not currently considering trading Tyreek Hill, and no one has even called to inquire about a trade. He did say that if a team offered 2 first-round picks, he would be open to listening. Well, as great as Tyreek has been throughout his career, I don't think anyone is trading 2 first-round picks for a 31-year-old receiver making $30 million per year. Not happening. Something else that probably isn't happening is them winning the AFC East, not with Josh Allen around. I mean, he's 13-2 against Miami in his career. And again, that's why I think the Dolphins are in a bit of a tough spot here, with question marks at several spots along the roster. Their pre-draft power rankings, for the record, have them in the bottom half of the NFL, and I think there is some pressure on McDaniel and their front office to have themselves a good season this year. I don't know if heads will roll, but they need to have a good season this year, and the pressure is definitely mounting. I mean, they have yet to make it past the wild card round in McDaniel's 3 years there, and that's why people like Robert Mays, the host of the Athletic Football Show, are starting to question them even more. They went all in on aging pieces, which left them with very little financial flexibility and the fewest amount of rookie contracts in the NFL. And now, after not winning a single playoff game, they are pivoting with the same regime getting to oversee the changes. So does that concern you guys at all? Or nah, they'll be fine and right in the mix again this year if Tua stays healthy, considering they went 11-6 in 2023. Let me know either way in the comments down below. And with that, I'll see y'all next time.